In this video, I moved some functions from main.rs into systems.rs. The main file was getting too big, so I decided to break all of the system code out into its own file. Through the video, you can see me incrementally moving over individual functions, and then fixing any errors and warnings that pop up along the way. I do move into a small issue with Bevy's info macro, which I'm not exactly sure which library I need to use in order to pull it in. The main previously relied on a wildcard import, used Bevy prelude asterisk in order to achieve this. I'll have to dig a bit if I want to find that function macro, but everything else works fine. Please enjoy. Here you will see me moving back and forth between main.rs, setup.rs, systems.rs, and animations.rs. As I began to get things working, you'll see me commenting out individual lines as well as whole blocks of code, usually whole functions, as I move them over into a new file so that I can test them incrementally so that I can deal with all of the breaking changes as they occur rather than having to deal with all of them all at once. First, I handle the current date time update system. This is the function that handles the updating of the current date time text in the top left window of the game. This is a feature that I like on debug panels whenever I'm working on a game project as a sort of milestone in terms of being able to update frame by frame text on the screen. This is usually something I do alongside the frame count as well as FPS display. And you'll also see me moving those functions over shortly. So it's currently erroring out because I have not declared the mod systems. If you want to write a function in another file, you have to declare it public, and then in the file that you want to use it in, pull in mod and then declare that you are using that function. We were missing another use statement. Just like in C++ or Python, you're able to pull in either a whole package or individual parts of a package depending on exactly what you need. If you don't know exactly what you need, it makes sense to do a big bulk glob import or use statement. But in this case, I like to specify individual objects that I'm using, so I know exactly what I'm doing in a particular file and with what. Because the main no longer uses current date time text, I'm going to comment and delete that line. This will fix the warning as well. Here I'm just sorting my imports. Now I'm going to navigate to the bottom of the file and start traversing upward in an effort to start cleaning up any lines of code, such as white space or comments, that will eventually be deleted anyway, in an effort to beautify and pretty print, my code. This is something I've been doing for a long time, and always something I do after I get my code working in an effort to clean up the file and make sure that it's not a total spaghetti mess. Actually, now I'm starting to work on the frame count update system. I'm going to follow a similar process as I did for the current datetime update system as well. All of the following functions that I move over are going to be handled in a similar manner. You can see me pulling in new use statements that are going to take care of any missing objects that I need to handle. As we can see, everything still compiles and runs. Moving on to the next function now. Boom. Headshot. Okay, we're about to move on to the keyboard functions. The keyboard system consists of three functions: keyboard input system, handle up down, and handle left right. I do this so that I can isolate the screen boundary detections to individual functions. Of course, I have to make keyboard input system public, but I don't have to do the same thing for handle keyboard up down or handle keyboard left right, because they're only called by keyboard input system, which is part of the system's crate. And so, because it's only called outside of that, the function itself doesn't have to make the other two functions public. This is actually a mistake. Bevy prelude exit isn't actually a thing. What I meant to do was bring in std process exit. Eventually this code will error out when I try to compile it, but not a problem. I actually do fix it. Right now I'm just commenting things out in preparation for testing the compiling with the code in the new location. Like I said, the compiler errors out, but not a problem. Most of what I'm missing is a couple of use statements over in systems.rs. Crap. Still doesn't compile. What's going on, I wonder? Ah, I was referring to the wrong location for his player. That makes sense. I also have to move in some missing globals. I should probably wrap these up in a different way and find a way to actually unify the importing so I'm not hard coding the screen dimensions all over the place. I'm just now realizing too that this new format for doing videos can actually serve as a tool for myself as well. That way I can kind of go over individual programming sessions and see what I did wrong or what I could do better and kind of dictate to you, the viewer, everything that might have been in my thought process that I wasn't able to verbalize in the moment. For some reason, I have a little bit of difficulty talking while coding, but very often not after the fact, of course. Sweet. Everything compiles again. We're making pretty good progress so far. Now for a little cleanup. Rapidly, we are dropping the main file's lines of code count. This is a good thing. You don't want an overcomplicated main. You want to break your code up into multiple files and functions. Now we do our commit. Boom, headshot. Now we move the next function over. The next functions are going to be for the eyeball systems. One of them is eyeball collision, the other is eyeball bounds. Now we add in the missing use statements. Now we compile. Now we fix the errors. Now we compile. Everything builds fine. Now we clean up the warnings. Now we compile. Now we fix the errors. Now we compile. Everything builds fine. Now we clean up the warnings. Now we compile. Everything builds fine. Now we clean up the warnings. Now we compile. Everything builds fine. No warnings. Nice. That's what we like to see. Now we're handling the eyeball bound system. Now we move the next function over. Now we add in the missing use statements. Now we compile. Now we fix the errors. Now we compile. Now we fix the errors. Now we compile. Everything builds fine. Now we move on to the knife system. Now we add in the missing use statements. Now we compile. Now we fix the errors. Now we compile. Now we fix the errors. Now we add in the missing use statements. Now we compile. Now we fix the errors. Now we add in the missing use statements. Now we compile. Everything builds fine. Now we clean up the warnings. Now we compile. Everything builds fine. Now we compile. No warnings. Nice. Everything builds fine. Now we do our commit. Now we move the next function over. This function is for the handle debug panel. Whenever you press D, you can turn the display of the FPS and the frame count on and off. This is a useful function for me and represents a milestone in game development in terms of getting started with your initial sandbox and system. Now we add in the missing use statements. Now we compile. Now we fix the errors. Now we compile. Everything builds fine. Now we clean up the warnings. Now we move the next function over. GetCursorClick handles the firing of the knives from the skull. It calculates a angle to rotate the sprite to, as well as a velocity, which includes a direction component, so that the knife fires towards where you clicked on the screen. Now we add in the missing use statements. Now we compile. Now we fix the errors. Now we add in the missing use statements. Now we compile. Now we fix the errors. Now we add in the missing use statements. At the beginning of the video, I mentioned having trouble with the info macro. This is that part of the video now. I struggle with this for a little bit, but ultimately I'm going to have to go back and dig into the documentation to find out exactly which part of the Bevy library I need to use in order to have access to the info statement, because I'm trying to avoid a global asterisk blob or glob. I actually forgot that it did correctly compile, even though it gives a warning about prelude info being deprecated. There's probably a more current way to actually access what it recommends to use instead. I play around with the use statements for a bit, and then I decide to comment out the info statement for the moment. A quick look in the Bevy documentation isn't fully clear on exactly what path I need to use. Now we compile. Now we fix the errors. Now we compile. Everything builds fine. Now we do our commit. And that's pretty much the end of the video. If you enjoyed this kind of content, please like, subscribe, share, do all that kind of stuff. I've been programming for a very long time, something like over 25 years. So please support the channel, and I will see you next time. You can catch me at my website, www.evildojo.com, as well as get all of my social contacts from there at EvilDojo666 on YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Peace.